Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you are a brand new subscriber or a brand new viewer. My name is Kyle. We are now in the month of October. Halloween is upon us, and like I did last year, I'm going to be talking about a series of horror and thriller films leading up to October 31st. And we're going to be starting off by talking about a film that is now 40 years old, Poltergeist. This movie was written by Steven Spielberg, directed by Tobe Hooper. Mostly, I think there are a couple of moments where Spielberg definitely helmed some of the shots. It tells the story of a family who moves into a new home in a recently developed town. Unfortunately, the home they move into also happens to be the home of ghosts who deliver a haunting. So bad, in fact, that they end up kidnapping the young daughter, Carol Ann, and they must resort to extraterrestrial lengths to get her back. Like I said, this movie celebrates its 40th anniversary. I actually got to see the film in theaters a couple weeks ago thanks to Fathom Events. I went to see it with a good friend of mine. It was a really great time. Poltergeist is a movie that I knew about from early childhood, but I never saw it. As a kid, I just wasn't into horror films. I wasn't into things that scared me, and from the way people had hyped this movie up as one of the scariest films ever made, I just stayed away from it. I had no interest in seeing it. So the first time I watched this movie was while I was in college. I think I was 18 at the time, or 19. So my perspective of Poltergeist is watching it through the eyes of an adult, rather than as a kid. Because Lord knows, if I saw this as maybe a 10 or 11-year-old, this movie would have absolutely petrified me. But seeing it through the eyes of an adult, I think Poltergeist isn't a movie that really scared me. I feel like it works extraordinarily well as a thriller and as a drama. Now, I want to get this out of the way right now. This movie is rated PG, and this was PG during the 80s before PG-13. There is no way this movie could ever receive that rating today. Despicable Me has the same rating as this film. So definitely as a PG-rated film from even today's era, and especially through the 80s, the stuff they show here would definitely terrify young kids or kids going to see the movie. I think Poltergeist is a very good-looking movie. The production design is definitely on point. You really feel like this is a lived-in environment, a lived-in neighborhood. You see kids playing around, the dad's watching the football games. All those things are just very, very normal. And director Tobe Hooper and writer Steven Spielberg definitely wanted to give the audience a sense of closure. Like, things are just fine, but then all of a sudden, they're not. It's a sudden jolt that hits the audience just like it hits the characters in the movie. This is also aided through the incredible practical effects in this movie. The things they do in camera are nothing short of spectacular, as well as the matte paintings in this movie, which are outstanding. I believe what I've always loved the most about Poltergeist are the performances. I think the acting in this movie is absolutely superb. Everybody is delivering 110%. It's great seeing Mr. Incredible, aka Craig T. Nelson. I'll always remember him as that role. It's great seeing him in a live action movie. It's great hearing his voice throughout because I can so clearly hear Mr. Incredible as he begins talking. It's just great stuff. But what I like is he's not your stereotypical heroic role. Like, if you gave the lead actor performance to Harrison Ford, the audience is going to go, oh, well, he's going to go in there and just completely save the day. But I like that Craig T. Nelson just feels like a regular human being. He's definitely as susceptible to harm as everybody else in the family. I think something both Tobe Hooper and Steven Spielberg absolutely nailed in their prime was dealing with child actors, because the kid actors in this movie are spectacular. Oliver Robbins, who plays Robbie, I feel so sorry for that kid. Every time I've seen this movie, I just feel so bad for him because of all the torment he goes into. Even though it's all acting, the things he had to interact with were definitely very harmful towards him, especially with that clown doll. Now, for anybody who hasn't seen this movie, I don't want to give too much of that away, but for anyone who has seen the movie, you definitely know what scene I'm talking about. I feel so sorry for a lot of people in this movie, and it's not just because of the Poltergeist curse, which, if you don't know what that is, look it up. And then you have the extraordinarily adorable yet also tragic Heather O'Rourke. Rest in peace to her. It's just so sad whenever you hear a child passes away. It's just horrible. She did an absolutely phenomenal job in this movie. You absolutely feel the fear in this child's eyes, and her performance is so sweet, it's so innocent, it's so lovable, that you just want the family to succeed in getting her back. You also have Dominique Dunne, and just like Heather O'Rourke, rest in peace, who plays their older daughter Dana. She does a very good job as well, definitely adds a couple of humorous moments in the film. And then there is the mother in this movie, played by JoBeth Williams, in a performance that, in my personal opinion, is damn Oscar worthy. She is absolutely phenomenal in this movie. My favorite scene of this movie is when they bring in the actual psychic played by Zelda Rubenstein, my second favorite performance of the film, who does a great job during her dialogue sequences.
You've never done this before! Neither have you! You're right, you go!
After she talks about a very uplifting speech about what happens after we die, she then talks about this terrible presence inside the house. And it leads to a push-in on the mother when she says that the creature inside lies to her child. And the reaction on her face absolutely sends shivers down my spine every time I see it. It's the kind of performance that you would literally see during her Oscar reel if she was even nominated. And the other piece to this movie is most certainly the score written by Jerry Goldsmith. It goes through so many emotions, from dramatic to somewhat comedic in the beginning to just downright terrifying as the film keeps going on. It really just adds to the element of pure suspense and thrills. This definitely leads to a couple of brief spoilers, so if you have not seen the movie, definitely watch it and come back to watch the rest of the review. Definitely the scene in which the mother tries to retrieve Carol Ann by going into the light is a phenomenal sequence, because you don't really get to see much after she enters the light. You really don't get to see much of anything until they get pulled out. But that score just absolutely keeps you on edge during that sequence. And especially at the end of the movie, when everything just continues to go awry for the family, which is like, why haven't you left the house yet? But I digress. The ending of the movie definitely has that Goldsmith edge to it that really definitely enters the horror realm. Now, while I think the movie is very good, I don't think it's excellent, and Poltergeist definitely has its fair share of flaws. Definitely, while I stated that the practical effects in the movie are spectacular, the actual special effects, I can't really say the same about those. The sequence where the paranormal investigators go into Carol Ann's room and they see everything spinning around, it's a pretty bad effect, and I feel like even for 1982, it's pretty wonky. I definitely think the worst offender is when Robbie is being eaten by the tree. He eventually gets saved, and then the tree gets sucked up into the tornado. That shot is so bad, it almost looks like it belongs in The Wizard of Oz. It's like, what is this shot doing in this movie? It's horrible. During the second act, sometimes the pacing can be a little bit sluggish due to a lot of exposition that's being given by the paranormal investigators. Sometimes the dialogue is great, but other times it feels like they are stretching it out to try to wait for Zelda Rubenstein to come into the scene. And the exposition does lead me to the biggest issue of the movie, and that quite simply is, I don't know what exactly the ghosts can and can't do, the rules of the movie. There are certain films, I'd say specifically like The Shining, where the less you know about the movie, the scarier it is, because your mind is just left boggling, like what exactly is real, what exactly is fantasy. You know, you're kind of having this sort of blurred line, but a lot of it is done very psychologically. But when your movie is showing a lot of the supernatural things happening, you have to question how exactly they're doing it and why exactly they're doing it. Now, of course, we find out why the spirits are angry. Completely understand that. But how exactly they manipulate the things in the real world is definitely something that really is never quite answered. It's definitely done for shock value, especially for an audience who has never seen the film before. Definitely having that reaction to some of those sequences is unforgettable. But certainly when you try to rethink and reevaluate what you've just seen, a lot of questions I have are just questions. They're not really answered. Definitely Poltergeist has some incredibly creepy moments. But what really just brings the movie up for me is the family edge, the dramatic story that they're trying to tell. Because you really do care about this family and you want them to survive this situation. It has an intriguing premise. Sometimes the visuals are great, other times they can be very wonky. But definitely, if you've never seen the movie before, it's a great first experience because you don't know exactly what's going to be coming next. I'm going to give Poltergeist a B+. So what do you guys think about Poltergeist? Was it a movie you saw as a kid? If so, what were your thoughts? Let me know down in the comment section below. I'd love to talk to you guys about it. I do apologize for another hiatus. There's just so much stuff that is going on in my life, and there's so much stuff that will continue going on in my life well into next year. So I'm going to try my best to make as many videos as I can during this season. I do have a lot of reviews coming up that I do hope to make, so I hope you guys stay tuned with them. In the meantime, do not forget to subscribe to this channel and give this video a like. All the links to my social media pages can be found in the description box below, as well as my business email and website, kjgpictures.com. You can also find that through the description box below. I thank you all so much as always for watching, and stay tuned.